And that's how we start this one off.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Straight Pixels podcast, where you are only 200,000th in the queue for entry. I am your host, Noisy Pixel staff writer Colin Buchanan. I am joined, as usual, by my co-host, fellow staff writer Nathan Mejia, and our long-suffering trainee, Madison. How are you doing, Mads?
Honestly, I'm a bit tired, but that's irrelevant.
It's always irrelevant. Join the club.
Yeah.
We're all tired.
Yeah. So most of you guys listening don't know this, but I recently installed a new hard drive into my computer because I'm trying to get Game Pass for PC to work the way that it wants to, and my OS migration didn't take. So if anything is different about this episode, I don't think it should be. I'm pretty sure I've got at least this put back the way it's supposed to be, but it's because there's literally stuff missing from my computer because I had to reinstall Windows 10 from scratch.
Honestly, that's probably where you should have started anyways. OS migration never works, buddy. Never works.
This is the first time. I've done this like 6 times. This is the first time I've ever had it fail.
I don't know, man. I've seen so many things go wrong with everybody's computer. Like, oh yeah, I did OS migration. And I just go, all right, give me a new hard drive. I'm going to have to back up your files and just restart.
Yeah. My dad got me like a external drive just for backing stuff up.
Yep. And that's just what I do. And yes, it might be taking a shotgun or a hand grenade to a problem, but then I already know where I'm going from scratch. So anyways.
Well, you know what? Speaking of failed migrations, Overwatch 2 released on October 4th. The day before they shut down the servers for the original game, and it's currently sitting, if you Google it, at a 2 out of 5 audience score.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious what it is on Metacritic. I'm gonna look now.
Kind of what happens when you just kill a server for a day.
Overwatch 2 is currently sitting at a 1.3 out of 10 for a user score on Metacritic.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think user scores tend to extreme towards one direction or the other. People don't want to think too hard. They either give it a 10 or a 1, but that's still very low.
Yeah.
There's lots of zeros. We can't do zeros, by the way.
No.
That frustrates me that the user scores get an 11 point scale, and I can't give a 0 out of 10.
Well, I mean, you could still input it into the user score yourself, so like you get an extra one.
Oh yeah.
Bonus review.
Just copy paste the Noisy Pixel review into user reviews.
Okay. The very last one on the starter page for Metacritic.
Okay.
I quite like this one. It took them 3 years to make 5 versus 5 fights, remove free loot boxes, and add a battle pass. Save your nerves and money. This patch is just a waste of time.
Yep.
I mean, it's not my observation, but I remember when the comparison video I've got as a background came out, someone made the crack that Overwatch 2 takes place 3 hours after Overwatch 1.
Yes, that's my favorite. That's my favorite meme
it's
about
really
this.
good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it makes it even worse that every character starts with their Overwatch 1 skin. And I'm like...
Which is funny because they all have new ones. They just don't default to them for some reason. And the UI is also the same.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean... Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Mads.
Yeah. No, I just find it incredible how quick the messaging went from like, oh, Overwatch 1 players will still be able to play the first game to like, oh, we're shutting down the servers.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, we're kind of jumping and skipping. So
yeah, we are.
Let's take this from the beginning.
Yeah.
So, right. Overwatch is announced. I think 2014 was when it was announced.
Whoa, we're going that far back?
Yeah.
We're going to
launches May of 2016 for PC, PS4, and Xbox One.
Yeah.
And it is a $60 full retail game that is multiplayer only, which was unprecedented for Blizzard at the time. There is no story campaign. All of the lore is found in bits and pieces of the game or animated shorts that they put up on YouTube.
Yeah.
But it is a 6 versus 6 hero shooter. If you don't know what a hero shooter is, it is basically a multiplayer shooter where each character that you can pick has an entirely different set of abilities and capabilities. Think Team Fortress 2 would be kind of the example of this.
Yeah.
Well, not the example, but like the codifying example of this.
Yeah, definitely.
And the original where the idea came from, kind of, sort of.
But anyway, over time, it accumulates a whole bunch of changes. They add a bunch of new heroes to the starting roster. They add new maps. Most importantly, they make some gameplay changes. The first of which was competitive play. A lot of people had asked for it. This kind of snowballed into an entire esports league that I think became either the largest or the second largest behind league in the world briefly. It made a bunch of headlines because the buy-in was like $2 million for a team.
Yeah.
I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah. Yep. It was really expensive to have an Overwatch League team. And they also started changing the way that team composition would work by default. So, for example, in quick play, after a number of years had gone by, you could no longer pick duplicate heroes, so that you couldn't have an entire team of Mercies or Bastions or
Traces.
what have you. Yes.
Yeah.
Can't pick Tracer. I'm already Tracer.
And then from there, we went to extremely rigid role designations. So every team would have, I believe, two damage,
DPS?
2 support,
2
and
2,
then 1 tank.
Because the damage heroes also used to be sorted into attack heroes and defense heroes effectively, and those just kind of got merged into one, and a bunch of skills got very, very homogenized. Homogenized isn't the right word, but reworked into more balanced use cases. Most notably, Symmetra was completely reworked like 4 times.
Yeah, she turned from a support to a defense hero, and now it's just a straight up damage hero.
And now the way that her beam works, she has like a laser gun that shoots a continuous beam, and the point of it used to be to drain your opponent's shields, and it doesn't do that anymore. So
does it just do raw damage now?
Yeah, isn't that weird?
That is weird.
Isn't that weird? But anyway, these changes, a lot of them end up being made for the sake of the Overwatch League, so they start making balancing changes to the heroes to help stabilize or change the meta. And as a result of this, the people that weren't super competitive started to slowly get alienated from the game, because all of these changes were so catered towards the competitive crowd that it was making just the people that just wanted to jump into quick play kind of frustrated, because stuff kept changing up on them and it had nothing to do with them.
I mean, yeah, like the point of a hero shooter is definitely like, you know, fun guys with different abilities. So if it's sort of being more streamlined into stuff that works better for competitive, it's a little less interesting as a casual player.
Yeah, it is. Not only that, is some changes to characters were so extreme that they might as well have just took that character out back, ODL'd them, and then brought in a new body double. Mercy is the most famous, besides Symmetra, for having the most reworks done, because she went from all res heal to a 1-person res type thing.
Well, so Mercy used to, as her ultimate ability that had to recharge over the course of the game, she would be able to basically, if you could stand still for 2 seconds without dying, she could pick up everyone that was around her off of being dead. That was eventually changed into being able to resurrect one character if you could stand still for a certain amount of time, with I think a 20-second cooldown. The idea being that you could only use it once per skirmish. And her ultimate was changed to a Valkyrie mode, which let her fly through the air and heal multiple people at once, or damage buff multiple people at once. So I liked that. It was much better than an entire push being stopped by the most infuriating ult in the entire game, because just suddenly all the people that you just killed were back up again. But
But this is akin to Scout in TF2 all of a sudden not having his 30% speed boost.
Mm-hmm.
It completely changes the game for a casual player and makes them not want to play it no more.
Mm-hmm. But over time, after quite a while of like cool seasonal events and a new hero or a new map every 3 months or so, the content starts to come slower and slower and slower and slower.
Yeah.
All of the events start becoming repeats, and people start questioning what the heck is going on. And Blizzard answered this in the wake of a PR disaster, as Blizzard basically always does, by announcing Overwatch 2, a thing that everyone looked at and went, "What is that?" And it's so Overwatch 2 is not really a sequel, despite what the name says, but we didn't really know that at the time.
No.
The predominant new feature of Overwatch 2 is a single player campaign mode, which cool, something everybody wanted out of the first game. Everybody wanted to know why it wasn't there, especially when some of the events that they would introduce would start like bringing in story missions that you would assemble a team for, and those were really well received. So they just kind of decided, okay, people clearly want this, let's make a campaign. And then it turned out that Overwatch 2 would be a free-to-play upgrade.
Yep.
And not even an upgrade, because like your original disc no longer did anything. So if you bought the game, anytime between 2016 and 2022, sorry, that's worthless now, which is this is the way that most MMOs go. The fact that World of Warcraft hasn't done this yet is kind of a miracle in the 20 years it's been around now. But they adjusted it. So it was announced that Overwatch 2 would be 5 versus 5 for the teams, which obviously would dramatically change the way that team composition looked. And then eventually they just ended up being like, okay, well, we're going to have to get you ready for this. So effective in this date, Overwatch 1 is going to become 5 versus 5. And we started just kind of getting a trickle feed that wasn't really clarifying the situation. They were originally saying that Overwatch 2 and Overwatch 1 would be running simultaneously, with all of the new content for Overwatch 2 being also ported to Overwatch 1, a thing that made everyone scratch their heads, because why? Why would you do that? How would you make that balanced if Overwatch 1 was going to stay 6 versus 6? And eventually we got our answer, and the answer was that was a lie. And it was, this is kind of mitigated by the fact that if you were paying any attention at all, you knew that this was going to be a lie. The moment that they said Overwatch 2 would be free to play, you should have known that them saying that they were going to keep the first game running was not actually going to happen. And they finally fessed up to it earlier this year.
It was really weird. No, you good. Go ahead.
No, you started first. Go ahead.
No, I just said that was really weird. That was the end and beginning of my thought.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no. I mean, I think lie is a strong word. Maybe they believed in it and then realized, oh, we can't do that.
They probably did. Like, I say lie in like the No Man's Sky type deal, but at the same time, like, it was a really weird thing to say at the time. Like, basically the entire time people were wondering, okay, why should I buy Overwatch 2 when it comes out? Because you can buy it because the single player campaign is $40, but the multiplayer component of it is free. Asterisk. Put a pin in that. Put a pin in that. So the way that player progression worked in Overwatch 1 was pretty typical for free-to-play games. You have a player level that would just go up. You gain experience points every time you played a match, whether you won or lost. And after a certain amount of time, just after every 20,000 experience points, you would earn a loot box. And Overwatch was the game that basically popularized the loot box. But nowadays, you can't really do them anymore because EA shat the bed when they made Battlefront 2, and they tried to make it pay to win with loot boxes. Now we don't really do those anymore. But the key thing here was that this meant that technically you could get almost everything in the game by playing the game. It was chance-based. The odds were not in your favor, but it was possible. And I have my bona fides here are I was a gold rank Overwatch player. It's not amazing, but like I was pretty good at this game. I played for hundreds of hours. I had a lot of stuff unlocked. I have, I'll turn my light on so you can see.
Yeah, it's a bit dim, innit?
So those top two shelves over there, that's all Overwatch stuff. That's all pop figures and Nendoroids, and I have some plushes, and I have a couple t-shirts too. Like, I'm clearly a fan of this game who's put a lot of time and money into it.
Yeah.
Sorry for your loss.
Yeah, all of this was before the Activision Blizzard sexual harassment scandals popped, and as soon as that happened, I immediately stopped spending money on this property for obvious reasons.
Yep.
But I'm emotionally invested in this game, and I have been for a while. It's something that I really, really enjoy, and it was nice that for my effort, I could get something without having to pay extra because I bought the game. And to be clear, like, there is the cost of doing business argument to be made here, but also Overwatch 1 sold millions of copies, and clearly with all of the brand deals and the Overwatch League, they were not hurting for money.
No.
So we got cool content every couple months, and you could theoretically get it for free. Matt's, your green screen is slipping.
Oh.
I don't know.
It's circular and attached to my chair. It's awkward.
Yeah, it's actually really cool because you can see the world kind of enclosing slowly around you.
My dad got it back when, like, Zoom meetings were a thing during the pandemic.
Yeah.
But he's not using it anymore, so it was like, mine now.
And earlier this year, we found out that Overwatch 2 would be ditching loot boxes. Which, okay, what are they going to do? Well, it turns out they're going to do the Fortnite thing.
Yeah.
And they're going to lock everything behind battle passes. The key difference here is that the battle pass is a paid system. It is explicitly a paid system. While you could spend money to buy loot boxes before, and indeed lots of people did, to the point where people went fucking bankrupt buying Overwatch loot boxes. Now you can get everything by paying for it, but you have to pay for it.
Yep.
There are still technically ways to acquire new items in this game without paying for it. There is a free battle pass track that is severely nerfed, and you can't get any of the really cool stuff, but I believe you can get premium currency at a trickle rate to where every, I think, third or fourth season you'd be able to buy the battle pass, and a season is 2 months.
I hate seasonal stuff. I hate battle passes. Like, Splatoon 3 doesn't have any microtransactions, but it still has the seasonal catalogs, and I just don't like them even then.
Yeah.
So I am not entirely opposed to the idea of the battle pass. No. There's a really good video by Dan Olsen, the guy who created Line Goes Up, the problem with NFTs, very famously. Last year or the year before, I can't remember which, he made an April Fool's video called Foldable Ideas Pivots to Fortnite. That was eventually retitled to Fortnite and Manufactured Discontent. That's a very, very good breakdown of the way that Fortnite makes its money. But I am not opposed to the idea of the battle pass, provided that a couple of other things are true. The one thing Overwatch gets right over Fortnite is that all of the individual unlockables you can just pay for, and you can pay for them at basically any time. I'm sure some of them will have limited availability, but we will know exactly when those are. And basically everything that already existed in Overwatch 1, you can go and you can convert real money into, their golden premium currency or whatever, and just buy it. There's no rotating shop that you don't know if any of this stuff's ever going to come back. Exactly.
Yeah.
But what I don't like about battle passes, and this is just issue number one. We're going to get to the biggie in a second. I don't like when the battle pass expects you to make this game your job.
God, yes.
And that's something, funny enough, Pokemon Unite gets right. It has
And
a
that
60,
game's terrible, so you know that this is the severe situation.
it has a 60 level battle pass that, I shit you not, within 8 days, I'm on level 50. Within 8 days. And that's just doing, just 3 matches every day. That is 30 minutes, 45 minutes of my day.
I mean, like, that is better, but even then, it means that, like, whenever I look at my Switch and I think, oh, I've got Splatoon on that, oh, I'm missing out on catalog levels. Oh,
Yeah.
I could probably easily do it, but I've already missed a few days. Oh,
Yeah.
no. I still hate that feeling. So, like, even if it's better, I still think it's an evil tool for monetization and hate it.
Yeah.
So I get it. I get like the appeal of, you have people that are going to put down their $10 every 2 months or so, and that's like an almost it's basically subscribers.
Yeah.
I've played games that have a submodel before. Very famously, I love Final Fantasy 14, but here's the thing about Final Fantasy 14. That game has like an actual character progression track that doesn't rely entirely on cosmetic items. Because you are playing to advance your character, you're playing for the story. There's a lot of stuff that you could be playing this game to earn. And very famously, Yoshi P, our Lord and Savior, I'm just ignore the blasphemy. We'll set that aside. I'll have to unpack that later. But Yoshi P has gone on record saying, if you want to play the patch content and then unsub until the next one, that's fine by me. There's plenty of other games out there. You deserve to have the time to play them.
Yeah.
A lot of these games just do not have that just do not have that mentality whatsoever. These games want to be the only game that you play. They want you to be obsessed. They want you to spend a lot of extra money on them. And Overwatch does not appear like it's not the worst, but it's not great, especially considering we have like what was previously a pretty successful business model that did not require every player to be inputting money every 2 months. Then you have, go ahead, Matt.
The reason we're moving away from loot boxes is definitely because there's been increased legislation against them as a form of gambling.
You straight up can't do them in some European countries now.
Exactly. So they're dropping that model, and that's why we're getting the new worse one, because this isn't technically gambling, but it still gets them the money they want. So
and this battle pass, like in terms of the rewards, isn't the worst thing. Just for buying it, you immediately unlock the new character Kimiko, and you get a new premium skin for Diva that looks really, really cool. So in terms of value, like you could just see it as, oh, I spent $10 to get these 2 things, and that might be worth it all on its own. And everything else that's in the pass is just gravy on top of that. But now we come to the problem of, you cannot ethically spend money on this game, because you can't ethically spend money on any Blizzard game right now. There is still ongoing litigation. We just got a brand new wrinkle in the Activision Blizzard case a couple days ago, when it turned out that the company was withholding promotions and raises from workers that were discussing unionization. So that's scummy, quite frankly. I know that word has a lot heavier of a connotation in certain places, but no, it's scum. The people that run this company are scum, and a lot of the people that oversee development at this company are scum. And I know that it sounds entitled to be like, I want all this stuff I used to get for free still, but the female employees that work at Activision Blizzard should be entitled to a workplace where they aren't harassed, quite frankly. And it's one of those, every single time they get a new scandal breaking, there's another announcement of a thing that people want.
I mean, Overwatch 2 was just announced with a pre-rendered CGI trailer.
Yes,
they didn't really have anything. They just wanted to go, oh, look at this.
And then
thing
it was
instead.
like 3 years before the game actually came out.
They didn't have a new game. They had a new trailer.
And in the
for
meantime, there
content.
was a huge content drought, and everyone was like, oh, they must be working on so much for Overwatch 2. And then Overwatch 2 comes out and it's the same fucking game.
Which takes place 3 hours later.
Like, there's some different lighting effects, and okay, let's get into Overwatch 2. Have either of you actually installed this game?
I have not played either game.
You are keeping up with this conversation remarkably well, Mads, and I commend you for that. So I installed Overwatch 2 a couple days ago. I installed it. I wanted to see, was it as bad as I thought it was going to be, or could I, reclaim some of my old, glory days, get back in touch with my friends, let's play this game again. First of all, I did not realize ahead of time that there was an account merge queue that I had to get into. So I logged in to what ended up being a fresh account with nothing on it because my accounts had not been merged yet. Which also meant that I had to play the tutorial and I had to play a play a quick play match with an extremely limited character pool because most of the characters are behind unlock things that you have to do for them.
Is this not why we have Battle.net?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I don't know why. I don't know how they fucked this up either. It's absolutely infuriating. And obviously, like, I've played this game for hundreds of hours. My team absolutely crushed the other team, and I got play of the game as who was I? Oh God, who was I playing? I was Moira. I got play of the game as Moira.
To be fair, Moira feels way overpowered than she used to be. But again, I'm a bad player.
I couldn't even be the character that I actually want to be. I was a Zenyatta main, and Zenyatta is not one of the characters that's already unlocked. So I wasn't even like playing my absolute best. I was playing a low skill ceiling character because I basically had to. And I get through this match. And I looked at the battle pass, and I looked at the unlock screen for everything, in the hero gallery, and I saw that a legendary skin is $20 now, and I uninstalled the game.
Fair move, yeah.
It's just frustrating. It's so frustrating to watch something that you used to love so much like fall in this way, in such a cynical manner, because
not just the development, but also like the structure of the game.
It's baffling. And it's like, I would be so much more, I would have like I get that this is me as a reviewer admitting bias, but this is something that we should all have bias about. I would be giving this game so much more grace if it was just made by a company that I could trust to be ethical,
Yeah.
But because I look at this and I'm like, okay, you can't get anything good without spending money, and I can't spend money on this. Like, what am I gonna do here? Because I bought this game, 6 years ago, and that purchase is now useless. I'm apparently, in the hundreds of thousands of people waiting for their accounts to be merged, so I don't even have any of my cool shit and all these characters that are still locked. What do I do here? Because yes, you can still just go in, and if all you care about is playing the game, you can do that. Go with God. I'm here for you. But the only meaningful progression in this game is unlocking cosmetics. So if you really can't do that anymore without putting money into it, that sucks. I'm sorry, that sucks. To my knowledge, we didn't get a key for the single player. I don't know if anyone did, because I have not seen reviews for it go up.
I haven't heard anyone talk about it. Like, no. I don't play the game, so that's probably why. But like, I've been seeing a lot of stuff about Overwatch 2. I didn't know there was a single player campaign.
Yep. Yeah. I don't even know what it's about. I don't know what you do in it.
I don't even think. I know you said earlier there was a $40 price, but as far as I was aware, they didn't even announce the price of the game yet.
Yeah, the campaign was announced to be $40 a couple months ago, I think.
Okay.
Or when they made the free to play announcement.
Okay, I just asked because I'm looking it up. I looked it up just to be sure, and I don't find anything about it. It just always says free to play, which is a little scuffed. Little scuffed.
The other fun thing about this launch, so a bunch of stuff has happened since. The game was down for a good majority of its launch day because it was being DDoS attacked, because apparently they have just as much protection from DDoSing as Kiwi Farms does these days.
Hey, topical reference.
And they're, as I made a joke about, the queues are in the hundreds of thousands. It's not as bad to wait in as the Endwalker queues were, but it does kind of boggle the mind that they did not have server space for this somehow.
Yeah, they shut down the old game and did not adequately prepare for the new one. It's not a good look.
Correct. And the people that I am the most frustrated for, I don't think they're a huge population, but apparently this game runs like shit on the Switch now. Like the original game was ported by Iron Galaxy in 2019. So that's not recent, but that's not old either. And apparently it was quite good. And they launched it, of course, at retail. I think it was $30 or something like that when it came out. And now it looks like you're running a PC game at the lowest possible settings, and it still struggles to hit 30 frames per second, which is fascinating because I don't even think this game looks that much better than Overwatch 1. It's not like they're trying to do ray tracing.
It's rendering the new lighting. It's just too difficult.
That sunset's just too intense.
Yeah, it's just too beautiful for the Switch to handle.
So I give you some real clarity that more than likely it's using a completely different engine that may not look different, but behind the scenes it is vastly different, and the Switch can't handle it. Or they did the thing that I'm sure they probably did, was Control All, Control C, Control V.
And just hope for the damn best.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I hope that they recontract out Iron Galaxy to re-optimize this port at the very least for all the people that were counting on it, because I know that they're out there and they deserve to have a version of this game that works.
Yes.
Especially if they're going to be expected to drop $10 every 2 months on it.
Yeah. If you're gonna play an online game, you want stable frame rate. That's fair enough.
Yeah.
So I'm frustrated. I miss the old days when I didn't know better. It's the God's honest truth. When I could eagerly get into all these characters that I really like, when I could wear all my t-shirts out, when I could play with my friends without feeling weird about it, because a lot of these games keep popping up and then having like huge scandal issues. My friend after dropping Overwatch got really into Dead by Daylight, and then Dead by Daylight did NFTs. And that sucked. But I get wanting it to be free to play, but at the same time I don't. It's just not this isn't the way that Blizzard has ever done anything before. This is a weird time and place to start. Because Overwatch 1 was in competition with a bunch of other games that were trying to be Overwatch 1. One of them just fucking came out. I have a review for it that is still sitting in the drafts. I don't know if it's ever actually gonna happen, but Gundam Evolution feels alarmingly similar to Overwatch 1.
Yeah.
And this game now feels like a game, like a free-to-play game that's trying to be Overwatch 1.
Oh, that's devastating.
And that bothers me. This isn't the premium Blizzard experience, and it's absolutely maddening to see how far the premium Blizzard experience has fallen in the time since Overwatch 1 came out. Because this is just yet another in Blizzard's absolute uncontested losing streak.
Imagine being a Diablo fan, man.
Are you dreading 4? Are you dreading Diablo 4?
I am dreading Diablo 4, man. Diablo 3 was all right. It had problems. It was all right because I played on console, was what it was made for, funny enough. But man, Diablo Immortal.
Yeah, it's just ways to get money via free to play. It's just slowly like you know that adage about like boiling a frog and how it's supposed to not notice it's getting hotter and then it dies. It's not
mhm.
true, but it's an old saying. Free to play games are basically boiling the players, right?
Yeah.
They're slowly getting worse and worse. Like Diablo Immortal, it's not pay to win, it's pay to get a chance to maybe win.
Yeah.
And it's just going to get worse from here because companies are going to realize they can technically get away with this by relying on the whales, and
Yeah.
it sucks.
Yes, because what people don't know is that it's not that everybody's spending thousands of it. It's that one guy who has very bad impulse control, more money than sense. By just going, I'll drop 100,000 on this. Not a big deal.
Whales spend way more than you might think. So you can't really vote with your dollar by playing a free-to-play game without paying money, because there is someone who is paying, like, supporting the game on their own. You cannot outvote that with money.
Yeah.
Blizzard, if you needed to charge money for this, you should have just charged $60 again. You should have just been like, hey, we've gotten to the point where Overwatch 1 is becoming too unwieldy to maintain. The code is too far out of date. We just want to refresh, and we're going to just, maybe even keep a legacy server running, but just make Overwatch 2 a full retail sequel with the campaign and the multi, like clearly Nintendo's fucking getting away with it. They've released the same game twice on the same platform, and people have bought Splatoon 3 in record numbers.
Splatoon 3 is different. Also, the story has a gimmick where it's set in the Splatlands, which is far away from Inkopolis, so Splatoon 2 is technically still happening at the same time because the servers are still active. But back in Encadia, while out in the Splatlands, it's Splatoon 3. It all checks out. Check the lore.
Yes, but no one's still playing Splatoon 2.
But they can if they want to. Because everyone's gone to the Splatlands.
That's fair. It's just... I
mean, I'm pretty sure the servers for Splatoon 1 are still running. It's full of cheaters and hackers, but like it's still running.
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that. I'll have to plug in the Wii U and find out.
Yeah.
Dust off the old Wii U, man.
Any final thoughts before we break here?
Overwatch 2 feels bad, man, and oof, that's all I'm gonna say.
My final thought is that I hate microtransactions, and the reason Blizzard didn't just make this a $60 game is because they'll get more money this way.
Truth. That's the God's honest truth. All right, we're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to celebrate the spooky season by discussing some of our favorite scary games, and hopefully have a better and later time than this. So we will be right back, guys.
Yeah.
All right, welcome back, everybody. In the first half of this week's episode, we discussed the recent launch of Overwatch 2 and how utterly disappointing and soul-crushing it was. And thankfully, in this half, we're going to talk about fun stuff. We're going to talk about our favorite spoopy games, as we are now in the middle of October. We are quickly approaching Halloween, and the for Nate and I, not Mads, fall is in the air, and it's just the time for it.
Yep.
It's spring by you, isn't it?
Halloween sucks so much here. It's become a trend recently. I never did it as a kid, but like kids are covered up in their Halloween costumes up to the front door, and it's still bright outside, and it's like, what's even the point? Fine, get your Skittles, but leave. I don't like this.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of just wanted to do a roundtable, having a discussion of all of our favorite spoopy games for Halloween, and I'm going to start with one of the very best, and that is, of course, Outbreak Endless Nightmare.
That game.
Because I'm going to make Nate talk about this at every possible occasion.
It is my curse and my cross that I will bear. It is my Data East games if I was Scott the Waz, my LJN if I was ABGN.
I see.
Nate,
Right.
what are the scariest parts of Outbreak Endless Nightmare?
The camera and the controls. Because imagine tank controls, like traditional tank controls, but only on your control stick. Which kind of can work, but not really. And there are people who argue that game is good. And I can assure them it's not. It's bad. It's bad in a funny way. Don't get me wrong. But randomly generated horror that you just walk up and it pops you into a random level, and it could, oh, I'm fucked because I'm in the middle with 3 enemies, a cloud of smog. Oh, and there's a floor trap.
No, I was gonna make a joke like that. You know, if AVGN was doing this, he'd be like, "Endless nightmare. The only nightmare is that the game never ends, but it's actually randomly generated."
Yes, it is procedurally generated. All of these games, so all the Outbreak games, to my knowledge, are made by one guy, and that one guy is the guy that showed up in our in the comments section on Nate's review.
One.
Yeah,
Right. I remember this story now. Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah, to defend his game in the comments of a review on YouTube for a channel that at the time had less than 20,000 subscribers.
Yes.
Typing out, I'm not owned. I'm not owned.
Yeah. And that particular video had gotten a lot of traction for us at the time. I think it hit 2,000 views within like a day or two.
Yeah.
Which for us at that time was massive.
And I think that was like Nate's 3rd review ever.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal.
Yeah, it was my 3rd review ever. Azario handed it to me as a joke, and I took it expecting a fun horror game because I love horror games. And Bailey will say this is his favorite review that anybody's ever done ever.
I wanted to be...
If you were there with it, because I streamed it all on voice chat the day I got it.
Oh, okay, that would be fun. Yeah,
so we were all in there making fun of it, and I was like, because there's a camera mode that you just spirit out of your body, and you can just see the entire level. You can go outside the bounds of the level. It is quite clearly a developer tool that they just left in the game so people can map out their route. But I'm like,
in a horror game.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what if sight jacking was boring?
Yes. and the thing, and it's like, oh, let me see what's behind this locked door. Oh, nothing important.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. This game was what's even a tragedy though is that me and Colin saw the first game he ever made that looked like it had actual effort in it, and
it was like RPG Maker.
Yeah,
it looked like they like he actually did something interesting.
Yeah,
because like RPG Maker horror games used to be all the rage. Like Corpse Party obviously is an extremely famous example of this.
Angels of Death was really good.
No, that's literally what I was going to mainly talk about, because I don't like horror games. They scare me. But I am exactly the sort of person who, when they were younger, just watched a lot of RPG Maker horror games on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean,
because it's an amazing subgenre. I love those things.
Yeah, it's a very particular subgenre that nobody really hits on, because there's Ebe re-releasing soon, and then a couple others that I'm just blanking on now.
Aren't they bringing Witch's House to consoles? The MV remake is like getting...
Yes.
Yeah. Witch's House was always my favorite. It's like the one I always go back to.
Yeah, I haven't been able to play it myself, but I keep hearing very good things about it, and I keep meaning to, so maybe I will with this release. I'm putting the nightmare behind me now, and talking about another nightmare. And we're going to enter the world of survival horror with the original Resident Evil game. And I'm not talking about Resident Evil 1 Remake.
No, the original one for PS1.
I am talking about, what a mention! Stop! Don't open that door!
Master of unlocking, etc., etc. We all know the lines.
Yep. I can recite that entire game in my head for whatever reason. That is
it's especially effective against living things.
What about Resident Evil Deadly Silence?
I also really like Deadly Silence. I can't remember who. No, I think it was maybe Nercius inside a community Discord was talking about it, and I was like, "Oh, Deadly Silence is so cool," because you had those first-person sections. It had some extra content. It was a really good re-release of the original PS1 game. I don't know if it had the basement theme song, because
the basement theme song is one of my favorite stories in gaming, because like it's funny, and then you hear about the composer pretending to be deaf, and it always gives me the mental image of like the ghostwriter he got just doing it shit on purpose to see if he'd complain.
Yeah.
Which probably isn't what happened. Like, it was, I think someone's theory was like they just put the wrong instrument in, because it sounds good if you change the instrument, but
maybe. But from what I heard of the story was that he got caught plagiarizing a bunch of stuff from the original release, and in the DX one they made him completely compose without any help, and that's where we got the basement thing. So
wow, that's awesome.
That was him.
I mean, say what you will about the man, he nailed the feeling of walking into a basement.
It definitely, every time I go there, all I hear is
and it's so like Resident Evil 1 isn't their example of any of the things that it does that would be Alone in the Dark, but
Sweet Home.
Sweet Home came before Alone in the Dark?
Yes.
It would have. It's a 2D game. Alone in the Dark was early 3D, so just by gut instinct, I would assume it was first.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure Sweet Home was first.
And like, even if Alone in the Dark did 3D first, Resident Evil is definitely inspired by Sweet Home.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah. But like, I'm saying that like a lot of the stuff that you see, including the tank controls, was very heavily inspired by the original Alone in the Dark.
It would have been, yeah.
Resident Evil 1 is a game that I have never successfully finished. I've actually finished most of the other games in the series. Just the style of even the remake, I don't know why I can't get into it. I've never been that big of a fan of the top-down fixed perspective games in the series, which is interesting because I'm a huge fan of a different game that blatantly stole that, and that is Parasite Eve.
Oh, I love Parasite Eve too, as well. Not Parasite Eve 2, but I mean, I also love Parasite Eve.
I've said this hot take before. I love all three of them.
Wow.
The original PlayStation, the PlayStation duology is just like a fascinating experiment for me, and it's so like interesting to find out like the original game was basically made as an engine test for Final Fantasy VIII.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because they use a few similar tricks of like having a background that's actually a pre-rendered video, so the camera can scroll smoothly.
Yep.
They do that in both games.
Yes. Very clearly, it uses an ATB system. And then
it's the horror RPG shooty gunny. I love games that are hard to pin down.
Yeah, and then the second game, I used way more of the animated backgrounds and foregrounds, because there's a sequence towards the very beginning of the game when you're approaching the office tower that's where the prologue episode happens. And you literally walk through like a disaster that's happening in progress, and you're walking between all these police cars and stuff, and it's in the foreground and background, and this is the coolest shit ever being on the PS1 because of like all of the stuff that's happening around you as you're just walking through a scene. It's really cool.
So that being said, did you ever read the original novel?
I have never gotten to read the original novel.
I know that
it's very different.
It's very different, but it's very good.
I should do that just so I could be pretentious about it.
You read the manga first, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of being pretentious, like I said, I don't really like horror games. It's not just because of jump scares. I just don't like resource management, and I don't like scary things in the dark. So my favorite horror games tend to be like visual novels.
Sure.
Yeah. So, Chaos Head Noah, which finally came out in English recently, is just one of my favorite games of all time. It's so good at creating that sense of horror. Like, Chaos Head is arguably more of a sound novel in that it uses its sound design, its sound effects, its pacing of its sound effects for effective scares. Like, there's a lot of blood and gore in that game, but honestly, the scariest scene to me is one that relies on that very minimally and is entirely focused on the sound design, and it's so good.
Yeah. Because I just started Noah today.
Please wait for the translation patch.
So,
control skip through it just to see everything, and it's technically serviceable, but it's easily the worst translation Science Adventure has had yet.
Is there
and
going to
I
be an
need...
official patch, or is this
Nope,
a fan?
it's a fan thing,
That's
which
what I
is all I'll
thought.
say on the matter, just to keep it vague. But Mages or Spike-Chun or whoever ordered this translation, they've just been scraping the bottom of the barrel. Like, Robotics Notes was mostly serviceable, but kind of shaky. This one's barely serviceable and kind of bad.
Which is frustrating. Is this Spike-Chun? Because that's weird. Spike-Chun's localizations are typically...
So the story
yeah,
is, from what I've heard, don't take this as gospel, I've heard this around, was that mages themselves went over Spike, ordered an English translation, and just went, here, Spike, please publish this for us in America.
Yeah, I would believe that, because mages, the Science Adventure team, they're the type of guys who had to be, finally begged into going, okay, fine, we'll make the little text in the logo, we'll actually get a translator to do that instead of using machine translation. Each little logo has like a short block of text under it, and the one for anonymous code went from talking about stuff like the stringy witch to the wizard that pulls the strings. So they don't really understand that you need to put effort into translations, and I would definitely believe that mages are behind Chaos Head Noah.
If I can stick with visual novels for a second, one that I have a feeling that we might all be familiar with is Saya no Uta.
Oh, Saya no Uta. I've never read it, but I've heard a lot of stories about it.
I've heard enough about it to know that it's not for me. But Chaos Head Noah does actually pull some inspiration from it, surprisingly enough, especially in one of the endings.
I could see that, because the opening has women being cut in half, and that's just the opening.
Yes. Chaos Head Noah, the OP they decided to go with for this release, Chaos Logic from the PS3 version, is accepting the original PC opening, probably the best opening that Chaos Head Noah has. It's so good. Yeah, I keep saying it with that same cadence, so good, but I need to actually justify it. The visuals are really incredible. They nailed the tone of like being a chaotic mess with just a lot of information flying at you. There's some visual spoilers in that OP, but they hide it by adding visual lies as well. So like, good luck working out what's true.
I am a Kamen Rider fan. Spoilers in the opening is what I eat for breakfast.
Yeah, it doesn't matter as much as people say. Just don't rewatch the opening and you're fine. You'll just see it once at the start. It's all right.
Well, it depends, because actually, if you linger in the menu, it plays a different opening than the actually one in the game.
Is that where they put Fake Me? I was wondering about that, because I thought they were, Yeah,
there's very clearly two different openings, which I myself love.
They did that for Steins Gate as well, I think. Oh no, I've got us back talking on Chaos Head Noah. You were saying about Saya no Uta.
No, you're fine. We should probably start explaining a little more when we're getting into the obscure stuff. So Saya no Uta is a visual novel about basically a boy who recently got out of a mental hospital, and his affliction persists, being that he sees the entire world basically as the Silent Hill otherworld. So every single person that he sees looks like a hideous monster. Everywhere he goes looks like it's covered in meat moss, except for this one girl who looks like a girl in a white dress with long black hair. And you can probably tell where that's going just from that description. It's fucked up. Yeah.
My favorite part of Saya no Uta is that some American like comics group, or they decided to make an adaptation, apparently without knowing what happens. Because they ordered the adaptation, found out what happens in the visual novel, and went, oh shit, we need to make sweeping changes.
Shit.
Yeah.
So the American Song of Saya comic is very different.
Yeah. I remember with Saya no Uta, or Song of Saya, but I always remember Saya no Uta because that's where all the fans call it. I remember clearly asking about it, and somebody looking at me, I love it, you should never play this.
You should never play this. But also,
unrelated picture of Gen Urabochi.
If you have a strong stomach, it's good, but it's also somewhat problematic. So be aware of that going in.
At
This
this
game came
point,
out a while ago.
everything is problematic. Get to a certain point, and there's always gonna be something.
You have to be willing to accept that sometimes bad things happen in stories, and it's okay.
Yeah.
You could read them.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm gonna also keep on the visual novel mark because I just remembered I have this for my Switch and I loved it. Is if you're a fan of good old fashioned Japanese spirit, go play Spirit Hunter Deathmark.
Okay.
It is very weird. It almost tries to be in between a RPG and a visual novel, but it's very much.
Explain the game.
So Spirit Hunter Deathmark is about a detective who finds himself in the middle of a bunch of mysterious cases, and particularly he goes into a mansion where he finds the owner has been killed. If I remember correctly, it's been a couple years since I played.
Mm-hmm.
And in there is a doll saying that he is next to die unless he figures out how to remove the death mark that has been placed upon him. And in doing so, he's going to various different spiritually haunted places. The first is a traditional Japanese high school where plagued by a ghost of a few kids, but one meaner spirit that's forcing them all to do it, it seems like. And in this game, encounters are played almost like it wants to be an RPG, but you're doing it through choices through a visual novel.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, do I fight or do I stay? Do I run? Do I fight? Do I run? Do I try to do something else? What do I have in my inventory? It's very akin to if people played the Ghostwire Tokyo Prelude visual novel, where it kind of does the same thing. It's a very, very fun playthrough. And like I said, if people love that old like Japanese spiritual horror that is very traditional for them, I just love it to death.
I have one more visual novel I wanted to mention specifically, and it's Neko When They Cry. Yeah.
I was not going to mention Higurashi, but I think that Neko is pretty well known for being the game better than the anime anyway. So
yes. So the When They Cry series is a series of visual novels. It starts with Higurashi, which has 8 episodes and is very long. And then it has Neko, which is 8 episodes and it's very long. And then it has Piconia When They Cry, which means when the stork cries or whatever, but like using Latin. Which only has 1 episode out at the moment, and Ryukishi 07 is taking a very long time for phase 2, and I'm tired of waiting. But Neko is sort of a love letter to mystery fiction, the concept of the detective novel. And it's mild spoilers for episode 1, but since it's 8 episodes long, I don't mind saying this. It's basically the story of a guy going to his family's annual conference for the first time in 6 years. And then a murder starts happening. And the golden witch, Beatrice, is like, haha, I killed those people. And he's like, what? No, that's stupid. So he has to prove that it was the work of humans, not an immortal witch with demon powers, while the witch insists that it was her. It's sort of a kinetic novel, which means that there's no choices. It's just reading. But like a regular detective novel, you're sort of encouraged to try and work out the mystery yourself. And I think it's fantastic. It's one of my favorite things I've ever read, even though it's 100 hours long. If you can't stomach a visual novel quite that long, even though the anime sucks quite badly, the manga is an excellent adaptation that gets you most of the information. And honestly, its version of episode 8 is probably better than the visual novel.
Okay. Interesting. I almost forgot that it had a manga, but you have just reminded me.
Yeah, it's very hard to find. I had to get it digitally because it's nowhere physically at all.
Oh, Nate, did you?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I always think it's funny. I always think a kinetic novel is one that has choices in it, because I think of kinetic and kinetic energy, which means moving energy.
Yeah, movement. I understand what you mean.
Yeah,
it's more that the visuals move. It's a story that moves rather than a story where you make choices.
Okay, that makes sense. But yeah, I've always heard about When They Cry. particularly, I have a best friend who was really into the anime, and told me to do the anime because he never read the visual novels.
Higurashi's anime is like okay, and then Umineko's sucks and ends halfway because they realized the small changes they made ruined the mystery.
Yeah, I mean, he was the one who also watched the School Days anime, so.
I have a lot to say about the Higurashi anime, so it's best to get off of this topic before this becomes a podcast about anime.
Okay,
Fair enough. Yeah.
What's next on the docket then, Chief?
Next on the docket, we're going from visual novels to the much more mainstream, because if we don't talk about this stuff, people are going to be mad. And I am going to start with Dead Space, as it is getting a remake very shortly. But the first two Dead Space games are masterful. Because they managed to deliver an action horror experience that doesn't just end up feeling like a watered down horror game with too many guns in it.
Nope.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen to the third game.
Correct. Correct.
But
you're right, and you should say it.
Yeah. But God, I love Dead Space, particularly 1. I like 2 a lot, but 2 does tend towards that more actiony thing. But Dead Space 1, with you're exploring the Ishimura. If you want to drop in the synopsis, you can now.
Sure. So Dead Space 1, I've summarized this game on this podcast before, but Dead Space 1, you are playing as a space miner who basically is on his way back from a mission, docks with the ship that him and his crew are supposed to be at, finds it absolutely decimated by some kind of mysterious force that is leaving tons of carnage, but strangely no bodies in its wake. And it is the story of his quest to find his girlfriend, who is still basically calling him through video messages, telling him she's alive, telling him how to try to find her.
Yep.
And it is a game about alien fucking zombies.
Yes.
And they do it brilliantly in a way that's actually scary and not cheesy.
Yep.
And the second game kind of ups the scale. You go from the mining ship to an entire planet colony, and this series is frustrating to talk about, and it was much more so before this remake was announced because of the way that it ended. Yep. Where the first two games were very highly regarded horror experiences with clearly a lot of love and production value put into them, because especially Dead Space 2 looks fucking phenomenal even to this day. But then the third game ended up being a shitty bastardized action game that had shoehorned in co-op because EA said so, and because it didn't sell, I think 5 million copies. They threw the development team at a police-themed Battlefield game that was really mediocre, and that didn't sell well. And then they dissolved.
Yep.
And now I think a lot of that same team are back making the Callisto Protocol now. I really hope that that's as good as it looks.
Yes, they are.
But this is an extremely atmospheric game that, oh my God, it
is very clearly inspired by Alien.
Yes,
like
obviously.
Every good space horror game.
But this was in a time before we had a good Alien game too.
Yeah.
Yes. There's a lot of things, like there's enemies on the wall, like on the walls, and just this ichor, and it's very reminiscent of the deleted scene from the original Alien, where you see the humans stuck on the wall and they're slowly being turned into xenomorph eggs. It's a very good creepy scene, and it's unfortunately that it got axed, but it's there. And one of my favorite things that you're going through, I think, the nursery, and you just hear a baby giggle.
Oh my God. Chills.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could tell it's a good atmospheric horror game because there's no way I'd ever play it. Yeah,
my favorite scare is the one that happens because it defies all expectation. It only happens once, and that they know it. But usually there's safe rooms in these games, except for one isn't safe the first time you enter it.
That sucks. Oh no. Oh, that ruined the whole.
No, it's genuinely a really good scare, and it like reminds the player like it's just a reminder that this game isn't as safe as you think. It's very immersive. I did not play a lot of horror games when I played the first Dead Space, and I was in love.
Yeah, it is the marijuana of the horror thing because it's a gateway drug.
Right. I mean, I was also going to say another really classic horror game, Silent Hill, like the first one especially.
Sure.
Yes.
Because I wanted to bring it up because it has one of my favorite scares in any horror game, where there's because you've got the whole otherworld thing, you visit a lot of areas twice, and that means they get to set something up. So there's like if I'm remembering everything in the right order, there's like this locker that's shaking, and there's something banging on the inside, and bang, 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 bang.
Yep.
And you open it, empty. And then later in the other world, there's some noise from a locker again, and you open it, cat jumps out, classic scare.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, that was a bit lame, but at least it's over now. And then bam, a different locker opens and a body falls out.
Yeah.
And it's really well paced. I love a scare that's well paced.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, the misdirect is such a good because the thing about a jump scare is, and this is true of movies as well as games, is that once a jump scare has happened, it takes all the tension out. You get a brief moment where you're pretty sure nothing is about to happen again, because that would be too much. So having a fake out happen usually tells the audience, okay, you're still okay for a second, but have a fake out happen and then a jump scare immediately afterwards. Like, the audience has been taken down to the level where their guard is almost entirely let down. So it just makes it that much more effective.
Oh yeah.
And what I love about it is it uses the normal world, other world to set up to, like, it seems like it's doing like a setup and then a repeat, and you're like, okay, it's done the idea twice, I get it now. But then it hits you again while your guard is down, and it's really good.
Yeah, Silent Hill has always been really good, and I would very, very much label it under psychological horror.
Yes,
because the whole thing about it,
which by the way, Chaos Head Noah is also really good at. You should check it out once. It's a really good game.
Yeah, and because it's at its heart, the original is about a father looking for his daughter, who ends up being tied to, in a way he never expected, a cult that worships the demon Samael.
Yeah.
And they have planned to sacrifice her to this god Samael that they keep referring to bring the other world, essentially to revive him. I think to merge the two worlds, but they're never very clear what they're going to do after they revive him.
I mean, horror is better when it's unclear. I don't want to know. I just want to be unsettled.
Well, so the second game has one of my favorite moments that plays exactly on that, because the first location that you visit in Silent Hill 2 is the apartment building, and it's big, it's decrepit, it's a fucking maze, and it is the first place that you see Pyramid Head, but you aren't initially sure how much of a threat he is, because the first time you see him, he's on the other side of a gate from you that you can't get through. So you just literally, like, you can get a decent look at him, but he just is standing there, and it's not until after this that he starts stalking you through the building. So you just, like, you get a look at him and you're like, what the fuck is that? But you can't do anything about it. You just have to move on.
Classic monster design of all time. Incredible baddie.
I mean, here's the other thing, is that it's a good monster design because people eventually sexualized it to the point where his original creator absolutely fucking hates it.
so here's also the weird thing, is that Pyramid Head is James's repressed sexuality.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
the scene that sticks in my head is when you're in a locker and he stabs the monster very suggestively, and it's a female coded monster because she has weird, like, misshapen, like, breasts and kind of two heads or something like that. I can't remember.
Well, I mean, Pyramid Head does commit a sexual assault in the game, doesn't he?
No,
if I remember correctly.
It's staged ambiguously.
Yeah.
It's kind of really super unclear what he's doing. like it's either sexual assault or like smothering to death, and that ambiguity is sort of also intentional.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But like it's never been given like an official answer. It's supposed to be a very ambiguous sequence.
Yes. It's a very ambiguous sequence. I am very, very happy that you know enough, Matt.
Thank you.
Yes,
It's been a minute.
it's been a minute. But yeah, Silent Hill is definitely one of those things. Unfortunately, another series that kind of went downhill after the. Some say after the third. I'd say after the fourth.
Yeah, Shattered Memories was still good though.
Shattered
No.
Memories was good.
Yeah, you're right. Shattered
Yeah,
Memories was still really good.
I think Shattered Memories was like the only Western developed Silent Hill that like actually understood what Silent Hill 2 was doing. Because a
Mhm.
lot of the Western ones try to replicate Silent Hill 2, but they don't really nail it in the right way. But
Yeah.
Shattered Memories got it.
Origins did, I think, a good job too, which is supposed to be the story
Yeah.
before one.
Yeah.
It's not like the best game, but it does good enough.
I mean, the problem with doing an Origins is that they already sort of thoroughly explained it in 1 and 3. So like, what are we doing here?
Mhm.
Gotta see where it all started. That's
Yeah.
gotta get to his head. Another classic horror genre is, of course, it's probably the last one we have time for, is the stalker genre. And I'm gonna say the original SNES Clock Tower game.
Okay.
Yep. I love the first 2 Clock Towers, which
Mhm.
means the original SNES one and also the PS1 one,
Yep.
both called Clock Tower 1 because, you know, weird release schedules.
Yeah.
I definitely love those games. I have a soft spot for them because they're set in Norway.
I didn't realize that. I knew they were kind of like a take on Western cinema in the
Yeah.
slasher genre.
Yeah.
Because it follows a group of friends, particularly who went to a mansion and are
Yeah.
being stalked by the scissorman.
Yeah. I don't blame you for not noticing it's Norway. The translation of the PS1 one, you know, the L&R mistake when translating back from Japanese.
Yes.
They named a place Rumsdalen, but they did it with an R, Rumstaren, which isn't a place and will confuse anyone. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I believe that second one, the PS1 one, does have sequences in like Oslo or something.
Oh.
But
Okay.
it's definitely a Japanese game take on Western cinema
Yep.
because it's got that big fancy castle. We don't really have those in Norway. I'm not sure why that's there and why the Barrows family has a big fancy castle. Did they immigrate with their castle?
I mean,
They took it
possible.
with them brick by brick.
Yeah.
I mean, could just be like Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah. I mean, they've got like black magic stuff. Maybe they did. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's always a very surprising game because while it being a stalker, it what do you call it, inspired a lot of games. The way it does stalker is so unique, particularly the other ones, because Remothered is the one people are going to naturally jump to because it's a spiritual successor to Clock Tower, and even then it does stalker through random event. Like there's some scripted events, but it's usually random, and you kind of run into the stalker every once in a while and have to hide and run. Whereas in the original Clock Tower game, it's all 100% scripted. Like if you do this or that, there are natural points where once you play the game enough, you know, okay, the stalker's going to come after this or do this, or he's going to come now, or I did this, so he's coming. And it's a different sort of feel than the natural ambiguity of, like I said, Remothered or White Day, Labyrinth Called School.
Yeah, there's also what was it called again? The one made by like one of the developers doing a Kickstarter campaign, and it's got like a scissor stalker as well.
And
I know
what you're talking about.
Kind of trash, and it's on a boat, and the name will come to us.
It will one day come to us.
Yeah,
maybe not today, but one day.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I don't think we have time for the name to come to you.
In the comments, I need help with this. I do not remember the name, and it's killing
Yes.
me.
Yes. It was so weird though that Clock Tower 3 was a completely different game and instead tried to
I
lean
love
into
Clock Tower
spiritual.
3.
It was weird that it
it's-
tried to lead into spiritual horror and drop the Scissormen completely.
And it's also got magical girls in it, so like it cannot be bad. It's a good game.
There's so much more. If you guys want a part 2 to this topic, please let us know in the comments, because I think we could probably just go on and on and on. And I'm very thankful that we had you here, Mads. I think that you provided us with a lot that we wouldn't have
thank you.
talked about before.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you, and I want to thank you guys. Unfortunately, we do have to wrap up. For listening to another episode of the Stray Pixels podcast. We are back to our normal schedule now, so we should be posting every Tuesday on your podcast app of choice and on the Noisy Pixel YouTube channel. What are your guys' favorite horror games that we didn't mention? Obviously, there's a ton of them. Do you want us to do a part 2? What do you think of Overwatch 2? Did you also think that it was trash? I didn't think that I had enough to write a whole hate piece on it, but I definitely will bitch about it on my podcast because it's my podcast and I talk about what I want.
It's definitely the scariest game we discussed today. You know, it's horrifying.
Let us know in the comments on YouTube if there's anything you'd like us to talk about on a future episode. You can leave a comment under this video or talk to us on Twitter. You can find me, Colin, at the Arcane Ranger, Nate at less than Nathan, and Mads at Mads_in_0. That's 0 spelled out. Or the site itself at Noisy Pixel News. The Stray Pixels podcast is brought to you by NoisyPixel.net. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers who work hard to bring you the latest news, reviews, previews, podcasts, and more. Please like, subscribe, and follow to keep up with our future content. Join our community Discord server to talk nerdy with us, and we will see you next week.
It was called Night Cry.
There we go.
I did it.
There we go.
I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. You had 3 minutes to remember.
Yeah.
All right.
See y'all
Later,
next week.
everybody.